In this video, we will talk about how to find the inverse of a quadratic function. So consider the function f of x is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 4. How can we find the inverse of this function? Well, it turns out we can use a trick known as completing the square. And that's where we add a term right here and we subtract a term right here. And that term that we add and subtract will be b over 2 squared. So if we have some quadratic equation written as ax squared plus bx plus c, this b term is just whatever is in front of the x. So in our case, we have a negative 8. So our b over 2 squared would be negative 8 over 2 squared. So negative 8 divided by 2, that's negative 4 squared is 16. So what we can do is we can rewrite this whole equation as f of x is equal to x squared minus 8x, and we'll add a 16, and we'll put that in parentheses, and we'll say plus 4, and remember we have to subtract the same value outside of the parentheses, so we'll say minus 16. Now the reason that we do this is because this whole expression right here can be factored as x minus 4 squared. And then out here, we have 4 minus 16, that's minus 12. So what we've done is we've rewritten the original equation to make it a little easier to work with. So now we can find the inverse of this equation. So the way that we do that is, let's first write it as y is equal to x minus 4 squared, so minus 12. And then we can flip the x and the y and solve for y. So let's flip the x and the y. So we'll write x is equal to y minus 4 squared minus 12. And we need to solve for y. So we can start by adding a 12 to each side. So let's say x plus 12 is equal to y minus 4 squared. And now to get rid of this squared, we can just take the square root of each side. So we'll have x plus 12 equals y minus 4, because when we take the square root of some value raised to the power of 2, it's just whatever is inside of these parentheses, so y minus 4. And now to get y by itself, we can add a 4 to each side. So we'll say 4, and because it's a quadratic equation, we'll say 4 plus or minus x plus 12 is equal to y. So we can write our final solution as f inverse of x is equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of x plus 12. That is our final answer. All right, let's try one more example. Let's say we have f of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 14. How can we find the inverse of this equation? Well, once again, we're going to complete the square. So remember, that's when we add a term right here and subtract the same term right here. And that term is b over 2 squared. So in this equation, the b is 4. So we'll have 4 divided by 2 squared. So 4 divided by 2 is just 2. 2 squared is 4. So this is the value that we'll add right here and we'll subtract right here. So we'll rewrite the whole thing as x squared plus 4x plus 4. And then we've got plus 14, and then we need to do minus 4. So we add the same value inside the parentheses that we subtract outside of the parentheses. So this parentheses right here, this can be rewritten as x plus 2 squared. And then out here we've got 14 minus 4, that's just 10. Plus 10. So all we've done so far is just rewritten this original equation. So now to find the inverse, let's write y equals x plus 2 squared plus 10. And remember, we flipped the x and the y, and we solve for y. So we'll write x is equal to y plus 2 squared plus 10. So to solve for y, let's subtract a 10 from each side. So let's do x minus 10 is y plus 2 squared. And to get rid of this squared on this side, we can just take the square root of each side. So let's write the square root of x minus 10 is equal to y plus 2. And then the last step is let's subtract a 2 from each side. So we get negative 2. Because it's a quadratic equation, we'll write plus or minus the square root of x minus 10 is equal to y. So that is our final answer. So we can write f inverse of x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of x minus 10. And that is our final answer.